My alien roommate on the bed sci-fi story Claire woke in the hush of ship night. The air cooled, the lights dim like a tide pulling back. Her chest rose slow and careful, her ears filled with the soft hum of engines and the faint rattle of ducks. She reached for the thin blanket and felt a weight that was not the blanket. A shape warm and still, a quiet breath at her shoulder, and she knew she was not alone. She kept still, her thoughts steady. She had trained for alarms and drills, but not for this. She sensed the shape was light and careful. Not a threat, more like a guest who feared to wake her. She drew a calm breath and let her eyes adjust to the dim band of night glow along the bulkhead. The bed lay Ivy, her alien roommate, small in frame but strong, her skin a pale dusk color with a faint shimmer like morning frost. Her hair fell in loose bands, soft and thin like down, her hands tucked under her chin, her knees close. She had curled like a child seeking quiet. She looked peaceful, but her breath shook a little, as if a bad dream had followed her from sleep and would not let Gockler spoke not with voice. She moved one hand slow and set it on the blanket near Ivy, a sign of peace, a promise that no harm would come. Ivy stirred, eyes opening, wide and bright in the dim. She blinked once, then twice, and pressed her lips together as if she feared she had done wrong. It is fine, Claire thought, not in words spoken, but in the way she shifted and made space. The way a friend makes a path, Ivy took a small breath and sat up, her shoulders tense, her hands tight, a faint tremor in her arms. Her gaze flicked to the door, then back. She whispered not a sound, but her eyes told the story. Fear had chased her into this room, and the bed had been a shore. Claire moved slow. She sat up too. She reached for the thermos on the crate beside the bed. She poured warm water into a small cup. Steam rose in a thin curl. Ivy watched the curl as if it were a living thing that could sing. Claire held the cup and waited. Ivy looked at her, then at the cup, then at her again, and nodding a little. Took it in both hands. Sip was small, but after it, Ivy steadied. Her shoulders softened, her breath came easier. In the hum of the ship, a rhythm returned, a human rhythm and an alien one. Two metronomes learning to swing as one. Ivy bowed her head a little in thanks, then set the cup back and held her own hands, as if to stop the tremor that still wanted to dance, and her. Claire did not ask yet. She knew that asking too soon can break a fragile bridge. She reached for the wall console and slid the light a touch brighter. Not much, just enough to paint Ivy with a soft outline. The shimmer of her skin showed old marks, thin pale lines that crossed and faded. The kind that stay when a life has been hard and a road has had stones. The engine tone shifted as the ship passed a relay gate. The cabin sighed as pressures balanced. Ivy looked up at the ceiling and then at Claire, her lips pressed. She drew a slow breath and let the words come, no sound above a hush. But each word plain shed, she had heard the clicks again. The ones in the vent, soft like teeth, not from the ship, not from the normal mice of metal that chew at heat. Something else, a memory dressed as sound. In her homeworld there had been nights like this, lights low, heat thin, doors thin too. The clicks would come, and after the clicks, Claire felt a tightness in her own chest for the friend before her. She knew a little of Ivy history, the intake file said, rescued from a camp near a burnt field. The words on a screen had been dry, but Ivy body told the true archive, the small flinch at sudden air, the turn of the head when pipes groaned, the way her sleep needs a wall to guard her back. Claire listened like a quiet shore listens to small waves. She placed a pillow on the bed beside her and tapped it. Ivy let out a breath and sat again, both on the bed, both upright, both with feet tucked under the blanket edge. Like two kids in a storm tent, Claire told her about the relay gate. How every time the ship crosses one, the ducks flex and the dampers chatter. That is the click song, she said, not a predator. Just the ship changing its breath. Ivy closed her eyes and tried to match the thought to the sound. The next click came, faint, then two. Ivy tilted her head, listening, counting. Her fingers opened and closed. The sound came again. Not a single thing, but a pattern. 3 clicks and a sigh, It was a door in a far hall, a valve near the recycler, a step of the core, not teeth, not hands. Ivy's shoulders went down a notch, another notch. She was moving back to shore. Claire spoke of earth, of winter houses that groan when wind leans, of old fridges that hum at night like a sleepy bear, of radiators that tick and click, all harmless, all part of a home song. Ivy smiled small at the image of a bear that hums. She lifted the cup, took another sip, then looked at the door and back to Claire. And she asked without asking if she could stay a while longer. Claire nodded and patted the blanket. The ship hummed a low note. The cabin heat line chirped and settled. And in that soft nest of sounds, Ivy began to talk. Slow at first, then steadier. She told about the night in the camp, when alarms failed, when lights died, when the guards ran, and the ones who fed on fear came in through vents and holes. The clicks had been the first sign. And after them, the stink of the dark lair kept her breath even and her face open. She knew that when a friend speaks a heavy thing, one must be as steady as a beam, not sag, not crack. Ivy looked at Claire's face and found a place to hook her story. She told of a sister named Lena, small and sharp, like a winter bird, who had held her hand and counted down the clicks as if that could stop them, and how dawn had come at last, and with it a human rescue team led by a woman named Kate, who spoke like a mother bear and moved like a storm, and who had carried Lena out, wrapped in her own Kawadavi, had lived because humans came. That was the line that held the rest. Kate had placed a warm fruit in Ivy's hand and said, "Eat." And Ivy had tried and cried instead, and Kate had not been angry. She had peeled the fruit and fed Ivy small bites. Patient as rain, Ivy had never seen such care from a stranger. And that day she had decided that if she ever had a say, she would live near humans, where the clicks mean home, not harm. No. On the ship, Ivy shared a small cabin with Claire, a tech who could fix air pumps with a hairpin and a firm smile. Claire kept a shelf of old Earth books with soft covers, and a tin of tea that smelled like dry grass in summer, and a plant that grew bright leaves under a lamp. Ivy liked to watch the plant in the morning when the ship lights rose. The leaves would turn to the lamp, slow and faithful. As if the lamp were a sun that had never failed, Claire reached for the plant now. She turned the pot a little, so a new leaf would get the light. A small act, but Ivy watched with deep interest. Small acts are how a life becomes safe again, not large oaths, not loud flags. Small acts that repeat until trust has a home. Ivy put her palm flat against the blanket, near Claire's knee. Not touching, but near. And the closeness felt like a lantern set between them's ship's speaker popped. A short burst. Then a voice from the bridge. Laura on duty. Calm and clear. All secure. Relay complete. Next gate in 6 hours. Crew rest. That was the message. Simple and soft. Ivy took another breath and found it deeper than the last. She glanced at Claire and held the glance, then looked at the door again. The door was still a door, but it no longer held a shadow in her mind. Claire offered to run a sweep of events, not because she doubted the cause, but because action is a blanket for the mind. Ivy nodded. They left the bed together and moved quiet in ship night. 2 figures in socks. No rush, no panic, just the work of care. Claire opened the vent near the bunk, her hands neat and sure. Ivy held the small light and shone it steady inside the vent. A soft dust lay like moonskin. The dampers were clean, the hinge points smooth, no sign of claw or mark. Claire oiled to pivots and set a tiny felt pad on a brace. She said it will soften the click. Ivy watched and learned. She liked that. Learning changes fear into a tool. They checked a second vent near the hull, and again all was plain. The ship breathed like a big cat curled on a rug. Content and Safety returned to the cabin and sat on the bed edge. Not as guards, not as sentries, as friends. Ivy looked at the wall where Claire had stuck a strip of paper with a small drawing. A circle for a sun, a line for a horizon, a dot for a house. It made Ivy smile. A house as a dot is a brave idea. A house is small, but it holds a world. That is what she had learned. Claire spoke now about Kate, the woman from the rescue, how she had taught her that care is not soft work. It is strong work to keep a ship safe, to keep a friend safe, to wake at night and put oil on a hinge, to share water in a small cup, to listen without showing teeth. This is strength as humans hold it. Ivy nodded. And in the nod, her eyes grew wet, not with fear, with the relief that comes when truth sits between two people and calls itself by its nameth. Next thing that happened shocked them both. The plant on the shelf flicked a leaf and rang. A tiny bell sound. Ivy jerked and then laughed. Claire laughed too. It was only the little charm Nora had hung on the pot. A thin metal ring that chimed when air moved just so. The relay gate had set a micro gust through the cabin. Just enough to tap it. Their laughter came easy. Not wild, but steady and warm. Laughter that wipes fog from Glassy lay back on the bed. Not curled tight now, stretched a little, arms above her head. Then she caught herself and looked at Claire for a sign.